What is a clear path to business success in Canada? Click here the subscribe button, set up the alert, and if the content of this specific video is something you find useful, click the like button. Let's start by remembering that we know that every company is for-profit business, right? The companies we deal with, right? We are in business for profits. Profits are the ultimate goal. Everything starts with sales. And the path for sustainable profit growth in Canada, though, it may be different than what you're used to from back home. So let's look at the path that works here in Canada. Again, we had a previous video where we talked about the sales part of things. Today we're going to talk about the path to build the best support network for your growth in Canada. Let me give you a few examples that come to mind. In other countries, including in the place where I was born and raised, it's very common, very usual for companies to have what we call a split banking relationship. What it means is you may have a line of credit with one bank, the building is financed with another bank, you do the foreign exchange with somebody else, and you do the payroll for your employees with yet another bank. It's common in many places. It's not common at all in Canada. In Canada, it's considered a little weird, a little like a lack of fidelity, if you will. First, there are very clear reasons why in Canada relationships tend to be more concentrated. There are fewer banks, but also there are things associated with granting credit that the bank that's granting credit wants all the business with them, and the documents you end up signing make it very complicated to do parts of the business here, parts of the business there. So it's just the way the market works, okay? But that is an indication of how Canada is different in terms of, let's say, relationship building and stability of relationships. For example, another thing that's very common in many countries in the world, and I know because I'm from one of them, is that company change accountants relatively often. In Canada, it's very common to have somebody with the same accountant for decades. Businesses don't change accountants that often. Businesses don't change lawyers that often. So, and here we need to talk about one concept that I really only learned about it when I moved to Canada. I started to work in Canada, which is this concept of the customer lifetime value, right? Like, it's very important to have this relationship versus a transactional approach, because in Canada, there is this idea that you're gonna be good partners in business, and the service provider that's gonna be providing services to your business is expecting to have a long relationship and a long profitability with the business, right? So that's why it's important to share your Why Canada vision with your service providers, with the advisors that you're surrounding yourselves with. They will feel good by knowing that you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're gonna go about your plan. It gives everybody a sense of confidence and trust in your business. And remember, trust is perhaps the most important thing that you need to have to generate results in Canada, right? People do business with people that they trust, right? So if you know how to conduct your businesses from sales to operations in a way that everybody who's in touch with you trusts your business, your chance of success is gonna grow very materially. So again, have to share your vision of Why Canada with your advisors and sales providers. Focus on the relationships, not the transactions. And by all means, choose the one that's going to be the best fit, not the cheapest or the quickest. Oh, I like this guy, but they only can talk to me in 2 weeks and I need something done now. Okay, sure, that may be the case, but maybe if you have a way to wait for that 2 weeks so that the right person becomes part of your team, of your advisory team, maybe you're going to be better off. Having the best fit, it's sometimes, most of the time, more important and more useful for your long-term success in Canada than having the cheapest service provider around you all the time, or having the quickest. The quickest usually it's going to be very expensive, actually, because there is kind of an urgency. If people are available to work for you, that means they're not generating income from something else, so they're going to want to get paid for their availability. So anyways, if this all seems a little complicated, yeah, but how I do this, how I do that, and so again, we are here to hold your hands in the process, we have our program called Your Business in Canada. It's a platform that we are here meeting with businesses twice a month and talking about this process, okay? So, but here, let's understand that in Canada, there's these standards for timing and quality that may be very different from the standards that are applied in other places. For example, people will make you wait to meet their current commitments. So a service provider, if they're already busy working on a file on one client, the fact that they have you now as being this new business opportunity, they may not drop everything that they're doing to be able to chase the opportunity that you're offering. And I know that sounds very weird for a lot of people to say, wow, what does it mean? They don't want new business? Yes, they do. They always want new business, but they also don't want to let down the current people that they made promises to. So if they promise something to somebody to deliver by Wednesday, and now you're calling on a Tuesday, and they were in the middle of preparing that thing they have to deliver, they're probably not going to stop what they're doing, because also we talked about this in other videos here, how people have other responsibilities outside the home, because it's a country where typically people don't rely on family and hired help for everything that happens in the evening with the family, right? So again, remember that people will make you wait because they already made commitment with their time, and they're gonna say, yeah, I'll be happy to look at what you're asking me, but I'm gonna get back to you next week. And that drives some people crazy. Say, wow, doesn't look like they want to do business. Yeah, they want. The responsibility to the commitments already made will typically come first. There's another point here that is worth mentioning. Half-baked information. What do I mean by that? It's, yeah, I just want to have a quick chat with you because I just want to run something quickly by you. If it's somebody that's providing professional advice, for example, a lawyer or an accountant, they typically are going to be reluctant to just over a quick chat give you too much advice. Why? Because there's professional liabilities, and there needs to have some sort of contractual engagement that covers the advisory and the information they're providing to you. And that typically has to happen under a contract. So we are used to a more informal arrangement in emerging countries where just pick up the phone, call somebody, you say, hey, let me just quickly run it by you. Let me tell you about my situation. And people, well, it looks like it will be like this. It looks like it will be like that. Canadian providers will be very reluctant to provide that sort of information. I can be sued for this, right? If you go and follow my advice and you do something that gives you a bad result and you decide to say, yeah, it was because of the bad advice that I'm in this situation, they can lose their credentials, their license, their professional license. So people will be very reluctant to act on half-baked information. Typically, they will want to sit down with you, get a complete information. They'll summarize to you what they understood. They're gonna ask you to sign off. Is this what we're talking about? Yes, that's the scope, that's the scope. And once the scope is agreed to, then they will do the work and give you the advice that you're looking for. So it's a more structured way. So people will make you wait and will want to interact with you in a very structured manner. So those Canadian standards sometimes are hard to understand for somebody who's coming from an emerging country. The other thing that also happens, that old saying that everybody talks about, but few people actually implement it, is time is money. Yes, time is really money when you're talking to Canadian professionals, because they will seek remuneration for their time. There's not like, okay, let's just have a quick 15-minute chat. No, yeah, book a chat here with me. Here's the link, here's the price. Insert your credit card number, then we're gonna talk, right? There's a lot of that going on in different services that are provided, because it took time to prepare and to understand and to have the knowledge that they're gonna share with you. So the time that you're applying now to talk to you, it's kind of, in a way, a return on the investment that they made a long time ago. So there's that type of perception and feeling, right? It's like time is money. Yeah, indeed. Oh, but they're charging me this amount of money just to answer an email. It's not just to answer an email. They had to understand what you're talking about, to be accurate about what your problem may have been. They probably had to do a little bit of research, and they had to craft a response to you very carefully in a professional manner, again, to make sure they don't expose themselves to liability, and they still address the points that are important to you. So it does take a lot of time and effort to reply to an email, and people, time is money, so they're gonna charge for that. So these are little things that typically drive crazy business owners that come from emerging countries can say, well, they're charging me just to have a chat. They're charging me just to write an email and read an email, right? But here's the flip side now. Okay, that's how they work, but these are some things that you have absolutely the right to do, and maybe you don't do back home, because back home we're so kind of worried sometimes about not offending people the wrong way. So typically we won't be asking for references, for example. Very common in Canada, when somebody comes to you talking a big game and say, yeah, we're great, we can do this and that, say, sure, give me the name of 3 references. I want to call them to talk to these people first before I decide to hire you. Completely acceptable in Canada. They say, oh, sure, let me give you the references, right? So don't be shy to ask for references before you choose a provider. Let's say you're talking to 2 lawyers or 2 different accountants. You don't know which one you want to choose. You have pros and cons from both. Well, ask them to talk to previous clients that they had. Okay, let me talk to your references. And nobody should have a problem by providing you those names. The other thing that's very important to remember, and again, don't follow into the emerging market mentality, which is, well, I don't want to insult people by asking this. It's like everything that's important to you should be in writing. Don't fall for that thing, yeah, the contract didn't make this clear, but we had that understanding when we spoke on the phone or when we had lunch. That is not worth anything if there is a problem and you have to go in front of the judge or whatever, because in the end of the day, the commitment that people are going to meet with you are the commitments that were spelled out in writing. If something was not put in writing, people will not feel that they are obliged to live by that commitment. Okay, so a commitment is what is in writing. There's not such a thing like, yeah, we didn't write all the details, didn't want to produce a very long document, but we have that understanding. Well, people have different and conflicting understandings all the time. So if something is important to you, you should have that in writing. And the service providers, anybody, all your advisors, they're going to deliver value to you according to what was specified in writing, right? Very common, people say, wow, why they're charging me this? Well, in that letter that you signed that you probably didn't read or don't remember, it was specified that they would charge you for this type of situation, right? So extremely important to read everything and to only sign once you agree with everything that you are signing and agreeing to, okay? And don't be shy to ask for references. That's fine. It's your right in choosing the right people, right? So again, understand the Canadian standards for timing and quality, and understand that there is a focus on the customer lifetime value. What you want to do in Canada is to be building relationships, not just doing a series of transactions, right? If you have the focus to be building relationships, you're going to do very well. Okay, here are 2 other videos that will be very useful for you at this stage. Thank you.